Shalom and welcome back to the Tea Table, my friends. Thanks for joining me today. The title of today's message is The Old Man and the Mountain, and it comes from 1 Corinthians 11, verse 1. And you should imitate me just as I imitate Christ. Imitate also means copy, try to be like, or to mimic. I heard a story once that comes out of an area in upstate New York in the Catskill Mountains of the old man and the mountain. The story tells us that a male child was born to this family whose home was located at the base of a really strange-looking mountain. When you looked up at the mountain, it looked like a silhouette or a shape of an old man's face from the side. You could see the forehead and the nose and the lips and the chin and all right there in the mountain. Anyway, as this young boy started to grow up, he became fascinated with the outline of the old man. You might say the young boy was almost obsessed with the image, and the young boy used to spend hours just staring at the old man's face. When the young boy grew into a young man, he never lost his passion of spending hours staring at the image of the old man. And it was said that the young man started to almost look like the image that he stared at. And when the young man entered into his 50s and 60s, the talk of the town was how the image of the mountain and the image of this man looked almost identical. Now, I'm not sure if the story is completely true, but I personally know that the mountain exists because I've seen it. But it does make a very interesting point, and that is, the more time you spend with something or someone, the more you begin to reflect on that image or that person. We all know the influence people have on each other's lives. How many times have we heard how a good person went wrong because of the bad company they kept? As a matter of fact, 1 Corinthians 15:3 tells us, don't be fooled. Bad company spoils or contaminates good character. Proverbs 22, verse 25 warns us about learning the wrong things from the wrong people. We are warned, be careful, or you may learn his ways and find yourself caught in a trap. The more time you spend with someone, the easier it is to learn their ways, and that's for good or for evil. I tell young people to be careful with the people you hang around with. If a person is not encouraging you to grow in the things of God and to become a better person, I would question if they are really a friend at all. It's hard to have an intimate relationship with anyone from a long distance. Intimacy brings you into close proximity to the person you desire to be with. Why? Because intimacy generally refers to the feeling of being in a close, personal relationship and belonging together. You do it because you want to spend time with the other person. You enjoy and look forward to being together. You can look at the other person as they speak to you. It makes you feel special and wanted, and like there's no one else in the entire world. Jesus had spent so much time with his Father, and yet we read over and over again how important it was for Jesus to spend more time with his Father. Luke 6:12 tells us, and it was at this time that he went off to the mountain to pray, and he spent the whole night in prayer to God. In other words, Jesus spent the entire night talking to his Father. I can only imagine what they spoke about, but I'm sure it wasn't boring or dull. So going back to the story of the old man in the mountain, what would happen if we spent much more time with Jesus than we do? What would happen if Jesus became the desire of our lives and we spent entire nights speaking with him and less time on the television or games on the computer and doing things that the Bible tells us profits us nothing? What do you think would happen if we did the things that would profit us much? What would happen if your life was committed and devoted to gazing at the face of Jesus and speaking to him most of the time. I believe we would begin to reflect many of the characteristics of Jesus. Is that a good thing? Well, we are told in Colossians 1:15, Jesus is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. I'd say it's a good thing to reflect godly characteristics. Could you imagine people speaking about you and saying what was said in Ephesians 4:24? And he or she put on the new self, created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness. In other words, wherever you went, people would know that you have been in the presence of God. How would they know? Well, in Exodus 34 verses 29, we are told that after Moses spent time in the presence of God, that when he came down from the mountaintop, that his face was shining like the sun from speaking with the Lord, and he didn't even know it. Let's be real. We can't spend all our free time staring at Jesus, and we can't spend all our waking time speaking to Jesus. But the truth is we can spend more time than we are spending. We probably can't even give him 10% of our day, because that would be 2.4 hours a day. But we can, as Jesus asks us in Matthew 26:40, when he went back to the disciples, he found them asleep. He said to Peter, "Couldn't you stay awake with me for 1 hour?" Another way of asking that is, couldn't you even spend 1 hour with me? 1 hour is just a little more than 4% of your total day. 1 hour a day. We spend more than that at a restaurant, or in the movies, or watching the television. And Jesus asks us to spend an hour with him. I don't think that's asking too much from the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Do you? Well, with that, I leave you with this. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ye'er Adonai panav elecha v'honecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yisemlecha shalom. The Lord bless you and protect you. The Lord cause the light of his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn all of his attention upon you and give to you God's peace. See you again next week, my friends, at the tea table.